How are we doing, everybody? Matt from Hannah Fields, back with a market garden update for early March. It's the 5th of March today, and I tell you what, we are certainly feeling springy down here. Look at this sunshine. Oh my word, it's been great. We've had about 24 hours of sunshine, and that smell of spring is certainly in the air down here. Birds are singing, we're seeing bumblebees knocking around now, and lots of sort of growth from sort of last year sort of going for it, especially in the polytunnels with our overwintered crops. And things are budding, trees are budding, fruit bushes are budding. You know, we've got them early signs of spring coming up with crocuses and things like that. So yes, I feel like the winter period is nearly behind us. So let's have a little flip around the growing space and sort of show you what's been happening and what's been going on and what we intend to happen over the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm going to start in the polytunnels because it's a great sign of that sort of cusp of spring in here. Everything is starting to sort of go boom. We have crops that have pretty much been in here since mid-October. That's the general consensus down here. So when things like tomatoes, cucumbers and peppers finish, we sow all our winter crops beginning of September and plant them out mid to sort of late October. And everything you see here is from that sort of September sowing that we planted mid-October. So we always plant things like lettuces and rainbow chard and pak choys and tak soys and, you know, lovely kales, spring onions for this year. Spinach, and that's a great place to start. It's coming alive now. So this has been in here since the 3rd week in October, and it's just starting to grow. We're starting to pick this now. This is giant winter spinach. This is what you call true spinach as opposed to perpetual spinach. So it's a great vegetable to sort of, you know, get in your polytunnels in autumn because you get nice pickings as you go into winter. It slows down, gives you 1 or 2 harvests, and then now it's going to give us a big, thick bout of growth before it flowers as we get into sort of April, May time. And yeah, that's the general thing going on in here, really. You know, things that are overwintering are starting to flower as expected, depending on when we sow them. So we always sow things like Mizuna as we get into the 1st week in September, and that's just starting to flower now. So that's normal, that's behaving how I want it to. And I could be sowing this again now if I want to eat some Asian greens. I'd get a couple of months of sort of harvest from it before it flowers in April, May. So just a little tip really, if you do like your Asian greens and you're worried about it flowering, sow it now. I won't leave it any later than sort of the 3rd week in March. And you'll get a month or two sort of pickings from it if it's not too warm. But plant it outside, not inside, because it'll be too warm in the polytunnels, especially, you know, as we get into March, early April. I mean, it's about 22 in here today and it's only 14 outside, so it just shows you this time of year it can get pretty hot inside. Coriander, that's coming alive now. Another great herb to sort of overwinter and sow in September. Pak choys gave us many harvests, but now it's flowering time based on when we sow it and plant it out. So I'm leaving this stuff in. This is great for the bees, you know, the early bees that are coming out. So I don't need this space yet. So just letting nature have a little bit back. And that's always a good tip. Rainbow chard coming alive now, as is our kales and our salads. We're picking these now and these are doing great. Spring onions, always get these in September, sort of October time as well, and these are just starting to go for it and fatten up, and it'll give you a nice bit of allium as you get into that early part of spring. Same things are going on in the poly number 2 really, to be fair. We do have a few extra different crops in here, things like carrots. So I always overwinter and sow carrots. So I sow these sort of like end of August, early September, and I let these grow a bit over the winter, cut the tops off, and then they give us nice lush green tops for a sort of like end of March, early April harvest. And again, more spring onions. You know, it's always good to get a head start, and these are great vegetables you can overwinter, and then when you get into that sort of first part of spring, you've got some vegetables ready, so that hard work in October always pays off. More carrots down the back. Again, always sow carrots indoors. If you've got a polytunnel and you've got gaps in there, you don't intend to grow anything, do a couple of lines of carrots over the winter. Maybe sow them sort of last week in August, and they'll chug away like this, and then they'll grow a bit as you get into sort of autumn, winter time, and then when you get into this time of the year, you know, just before spring, they'll have a little cheeky bit of growth again, you'll get a little bit more carrot for your money. So always grow carrots indoors over winter, I recommend, because you're not risking, you know, wet, damp, cold, slug environments that we get outside at that time of year. Okay, the rest of the growing space. So over here, this is our little fruit area, which we have just had a tidy up yesterday, and it's all budding. So we've got lovely buds coming on our raspberry bushes and our currant bushes and goji berry and all that sort of thing. So yes, always a good sign when I see that coming. I know that spring is on the way. And this is the third year of this bed being established. We planted this a couple of years ago, so this will be its third season of giving us fruit, and I look forward to what that's going to do this year. The herb bed's starting to come alive. I always think when you start to see chives, you know that spring is on the way. And yeah, spring is definitely on its way when I see these. So chives are coming through, things like our golden oregano and sage, and tarragon is just starting to come back. So we've got a bit of growth going on down here. I don't know if you can see that. So all good signs that we're in the right space with what's going on at this time of year for things to start growing again. Not a lot happening over here. These are empty beds, really. This is where we do lettuce all year round, pretty much. This was a raised bed that we took out and widened a little bit, and just filled it full of compost, ready to receive our lettuce, which has been sown. So in terms of sowing, mid-February is always our starting point for sowing vegetables for the new growing space, the new growing season. And we do that at home until sort of like mid-April, which is our last frost date. So we tend to sow mid-Feb, and that time of year is when we do lettuces, Asian greens if we decide to. I do our first lot of cabbages, which are Derby Day. They're a great spring cabbage to grow. We get things like bolt-hardy beetroots on the go, and peas. So that's kind of the first glut, if you will. And peppers as well. Peppers is another one we do mid-Feb. So that's our first glut of vegetables, and they're all chugging away in our kitchen at home. And what we tend to do is we stack them in the kitchen to germinate, keep nice and warm, and then we have a greenhouse at home, and they go out of the house into the greenhouse to get their 360 light all day. And then we bring them back in at night, because we're still getting quite cold evenings here, and things like peppers, for instance, don't like the cold. So keep them as warm as you can, for instance. So yeah, we're well underway, and as we get into sort of like next week and the week after, we will start putting some things in the ground under cover, and that brings me nicely over to our main bed, which will start receiving crops soon. So this is our main bed down here on Hannah's. As you can see, it's all ready to go. We've sort of placed our hoops where we need them based on the crops we're gonna put in this bed this year, and it's had 2 to 3 sort of centimeters of homemade compost, although this one's had a little bit more. This is where we've grown potatoes this year. And speaking of which, so this is going to receive our potatoes about mid-March. So maybe sort of latter part of next week, we'll be growing Charlotte potatoes in here. And then by end of June, mid-June, we'll follow that with leeks. Down here will be carrots, followed by Brussels sprouts. And here we will be doing beetroots, followed by another brassica. Haven't made my mind up yet what that's going to be. So most beds here receive at least 2 crops a year, and it's normally a spring crop followed by an early summer crop. So normally plant out March and then plant out again mid to late June going forward. So that's kind of our pattern, our sort of strategy down here, if you will. And then just take you over to this bed, which again is sort of prepped and ready to go. So kale is going under the hoops this year. 2 varieties, Calavinero kale and curly kale, and that will sort of give us a nice bit of kale for the majority of the year into next year, really. Down here, rainbow chard will be planted, and these won't have follow-on crops. That'll be the crop in these 2 beds for the whole of the year. This is where cabbages are going to be, and at the minute we've still got a few cheeky like rainbow chards and a few little kales still hanging in there, giving us a bit of harvest. And once the cabbages are done, I'll probably go with something like spring onions in here, or our second batch of beetroots. Again, not decided. This is where we grow squashes last year, and this year I was going to be growing pumpkins. I'm going to be doing the lantern pumpkins, because we've got a bit of a Halloween thing going on later on in the year around sort of Beltane time. And I thought I'd grow pumpkins, because I haven't grown them for a number of years. it's normally just winter squashes. So pumpkins on here this year. And if you're wondering what them little 2 beds are in the corner, I do growing class courses down here, various ones throughout the year, which is a great thing. I really enjoy teaching. So that's just some of the beds that some of the students that come on them courses use. Early broccoli. I can't believe it. The broccoli is starting to give us some flower. I don't know if you can see this down here. It's early. We normally get broccoli at this point at the end of March, and then we harvest it sort of 3rd week in April. That's kind of normally where it's at, but it's come early this year, and I think spring in general, the energy of spring anyway, is certainly early. I think it's coming before the equinox in terms of the energy of things coming alive and growing this year. And that's great because it means we get a few more weeks of beautiful sunshine and budding and bees and birds. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can sort of go at you with over the growing area this March. I don't think there is. That's pretty much it. So it's all about sowing now, guys. So if you're organising, you're on it, and you know what you want to be sowing this year, it's now the perfect time to get them first crops underway. So we are the 5th of March today, so I'm going to be sowing things like indoor carrots for a cheeky crop. That will give us a crop a couple of 3 weeks earlier than the outdoor carrots, which I sow directly normally the week after the equinox. Anything between the 21st and 30th of sort of March is when I do our main crop of carrots here. So I'll be sowing them indoors, like I say, in the next sort of week or so. I'm also going to be sowing some more beetroot because we like an overlap of beetroot here. So I sow that pretty much every month, every 6 weeks, something like that. So beetroot's a great one to be sowing. Any of your brassicas, so if you want to be sowing things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, even some kohlrabi and turnips, things like that, get them sown this week for your sort of spring harvests. Salads obviously, and the big one that comes sort of mid-March is tomatoes. So I'll wait till about the 14th or 15th of March, and then we get them tomato seeds out. So yeah, just some ideas for you that you could be sowing over the next sort of week or two. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found this video useful. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe to this channel, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Lots of love. Take care, guys.